the divinity. Today we are going to read from the common Buddhist text, guidance, insight from the Buddha. This is a continuing from the life of the historical Buddha. Read as much as I can. Give it a good 45 to an hour. The quest for the awakening. The noble search. In this passage, the Buddha Gautama describes the noble search for that which is beyond the limitations of conditioned existence, and how to begin this search. Bhikkhus, monks, there are these two kinds of search: the noble search and the ignoble search. Bhikkhus, monks, what is the ignoble search? Bhikkhus, monks, here someone, being himself subject to birth, seeks what is also subject to birth. Being himself subject to aging, he seeks what is also subject to aging. Being himself subject to sickness, he seeks what is also subject to sickness. Being himself subject to death, he seeks what is also subject to death. Being himself subject to sorrow, he seeks what is also subject to sorrow. Being himself subject to defilements, he seeks what is also subject to defilements. Bhikkhus, monks, what may be spoken of as subject to birth? Wife and children are subject to birth. Men and women, slaves, are subject to birth. Goats, sheep are subject to birth. Fowls and pigs are subject to birth. Elephants, cattle, horses, and mares are subject to birth. Gold and silver are subject to birth. Bhikkhus, monks, these acquisitions are subject to birth. One who is tied to these things, infatuated with them, and addicted to them, being himself subject to birth, seeks what is also subject to birth. Wife and children, etc., are likewise each explained to be subject to aging and defilements, and all but gold and silver to be subject to sickness and death and sorrow. One who is tied to these things, infatuated with them, and addicted to them, being himself subject to aging, birth and death, sickness, seeks what is also subject to aging, sickness, and death. Monks, bhikkhus, this is the ignoble search. Bhikkhus, monks, what is the noble search? Here someone, being himself subject to birth, knowing the danger in what is subject to birth, seeks the unborn supreme security from bondage, nirvana, liberation, being himself subject to aging. Knowing the danger in what is subject to aging, he seeks the unaging supreme security from bondage, nirvana, liberation, being himself subject to sickness. Knowing the danger in what is subject to sickness, he seeks the unerring supreme security from bondage, nirvana, liberation, being himself subject to death. Knowing the danger in what is subject to death, he seeks the deathless supreme security from bondage, nirvana, liberation. being himself subject to sorrow, knowing the danger in what is subject to sorrow. He seeks sorrowlessness, supreme security from bondage, nirvana, liberation, being himself subject to defilement, knowing the danger in what is subject to defilement. He seeks the undefiled, supreme security from bondage, nirvana. Bhikkhus, monks, this is the noble search. Bhikkhus, monks, before my awakening, not yet fully awakened, while I was still a bodhisattva, I too, being myself subject to birth, sought what was also subject to birth, being myself subject to aging, sickness, and death, sorrow, and defilement. I sought what was also subject to these. Bhikkhus, monks, then I consider, why being myself subject to birth do I seek what is also subject to birth? Why being myself subject to aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and defilement do I seek what is also subject to these? Suppose that being myself subject to birth, knowing the danger and what is subject to birth, I seek the unborn supreme, security from bondage, nirvana, liberation. Suppose being myself subject to aging, etc., knowing the danger in all these subjects to aging and all the other, etc., I seek the unaging, the unailing, the deathless, the sorrowlessness, the undefiled, supreme security from bondage, nirvana, liberation. Bhikkhus, monks, latter while still young, a black-haired young man, endowed with the blessing of youth, in his prime of his life, though my mother and my father wished otherwise and wept with tearful faces, I shaved off my hair and beard, put on a yellow robe, and went forth from home life to homelessness. Going forth. This passage is the start of Gautama life of renunciation and spiritual seeking. Agivesana, before my awakening, yet fully awakened while I was still a bodhisattva, I considered home life is constriction, a sphere of dust. A fear of dust. He's talking about the defilements of greed and hate. The life going forth, which is the life of renunciation, is an open air life. It is not easy while living in a home life. In the household that's living a worldly life, in the family with other dependents and responsibilities. To lead the holy life, absolutely perfect, entirely pure, as a polished shell. Suppose I shave my head, beard, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from home life to homelessness. As context, in those days, Gautama the Buddha is from a wealthy family, and he had the opportunity to have a lot of education. There were a lot of kind of forms of aestheticism where these cities or monks or Brahmins or Satanas, they practice a form of austerity, of penance, and they took it to the certain extremes. That's really important to understand the context of this time when it was not unusual for someone to leave the home life. But for the Buddha, Gautama's Buddha's context, it was really unusual because he had it all. A prince. He had everything he wanted. He's seen everything. He could taste anything. He could learn anything. He learned the arts, physical arts, mental arts, all kinds of stuff. But that's the context that you need to know to put yourself in those times. So it was not unusual for someone to throw off everything and just go and search for a spiritual conquest, because a lot of the other young men were doing the same thing, going to the forest as a recluse, or the percentage of spiritual consciousness was going on was mainly classified as Satana Dharma. The Satana Dharma is Satana means eternal. Dharma is the law. And goes into those categories is Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. They're all Satana Dharmas. So Agavesana, later while I was still young, a black-haired young man, endowed with the blessing of youth in my prime of life, though my mother and my father wished otherwise and wept with tearful faces, I shaved off my head and beard, put on a yellow robe, and went forth from home to homelessness. Now, you have to realize what the purpose of a mother and a father does in context of those times and these times also. But it's the legacy, number one. Number two, having a child is very important, especially a male, to continue the bloodline. And number three, they were all part of a caste system. So there's four caste system. Gautama was born in a warrior caste, so he was not a Brahmin. Emphasis on that too. Going forth can be found in Mahasakha Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, and his preparing for his spiritual striving. So I shall praise going forth, as one with vision went forth, as he examining found delight in going forth. Seeing that this home life is a constriction, the sphere of dust, of greed, hate, and delusion, and that going forth is an open air life, he went forth. Having gone forth, he avoided evil deeds. Emphasis on this, evil deeds with the body. Having abandoned bad conduct in word, he purified his mode of living. Though he has not yet attained the awakening state, Gautama went to Rajaka, or Rajkot, the capital in Magha, in India. The one endowed with excellent marks went to Gribija, walked amongst the Maghavins for collecting alms. Standing in his place, Bimbisara. Bimbisara is the king of this town, right? Who became a very close devotee of Gautama, visiting him where he found an opportunity in his old age. Bimbisara was murdered by his powerful, hungry son, Ajata Sutta. So, standing in this palace, Bimbisara saw him, seeing the endowed one with these marks. He said, these marks, these qualities. Sir, look at this one who is handsome, large, pure. He is endowed with good conduct, as he looks ahead of yoke's length only. The distance of a yoke length is because he's keeping his eyes, his gaze focused downward as he's going on bindabat, or alms rounds. With downturned eyes, possessing mindfulness. This one is not as though from a lowly family. Yet the royal messengers run out to find where the monk will go. The royal messengers went out, followed behind him, thinking, where will the monk go? Where will his dwelling be? So you got to think about this. He's a prince. He was not from a lowly class family, so he had servants. And as a prince going on alms round, you would expect that all his servants, people that served him, also follow him every single where he went. His father is a king, so he went everywhere. His servants followed him also. Going on a continuous round, visiting every house in the village for alms without being selective, giving every family the opportunity to generate beneficial karma by offering food. Um, and with these sense doors guarded, the sense doors are the five physical senses, the skandhas, or the sense spheres. So to the rather state of the other agrees of that we talk about profoundly of the five skandhas. Well restrained, he filled his boat quickly, being attentive and mindful, having wandered on his alms round, having gone out of the city. The sage took himself to Mount Panda, thinking, here will be my dwelling. Seeking him, taking his dwelling, the three messengers sat down. Among them, one came back alone and informed the king. So think about this. If we're going to do something in modern times, right? I don't want to say any names, but let's just say one of the princes of a monarch family renounces his kingship, his kingdom that he's about to be heir to, and just became a recluse, a renunciate. How many people do you think will follow him every single place this man goes? Just to think about that. So he takes his dwelling in a mountain, right? Seeing him taking his dwelling, the three messengers sat down. Among them, one came back alone and informed the king. Great king, that Binku, that monk, is seated on the eastern side of Mount Pandava, like a tiger or bull, like a lion in a mountain cave. Hearing the messenger's word, the ruler went hurrying in the state vehicle out to the Pandava. That ruler, going by vehicle as far as the vehicle parked, descended from the vehicle and went up to him on foot. Reaching him, he sat down. Having sat down, the king exchanged a customarily friendly greeting. Having exchanged greetings, he said this, you are young and tender in your first youth, a stripling, having good complexion and stature, like a ruler of good birth, making beautiful the van of the army, and the head of the community of elephants. I shall give you wealth. Enjoy it. Tell me your birth when I ask. King, straight on in that direction there is a people living on that flank of the Himalayas, or the Himalayas, having wealth and vigor, belonging to one who has long connection to the Kosa clans. They are Aditya by clan, Sakya by birth. From the family I went forth, not desiring pleasure of senses, having seen the peril in sensual pleasures. Having seen going forth as safety, I shall go in order to strive. In that my mind delights. This is cited in the Papacha Sutra, Sutta Nipata. So even those times he encountered Gautama Buddha. This is before his awakening. He even encountered obstacles where he had other wealthy people who pour love on him and try to steer him back into the household life. But still, he told the king, I'm from this search family, from this clan, I'm the this and so forth. But I left that plan because I was aware that the five senses, they bring greed and hate and aversion. So he went on searching. I'm going to fit in one more. Attaining refined formless states. In his spiritual quest, Gautama at first went to two teachers who taught him how to attain two formless mystical states beyond perception of physical things, which he later incorporated in his own teaching. In the following passages, though the fact that they fall short of the goal, it is emphasized. The sphere of nothingness taught by Araka Kamala. Bhikkhus, monks, having gone forth, thus searching for what is wholesome, kusala kama, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace. I went to meet Alara Kamala and said to him, "Friend Kalama, I want to lead the holy life in this Dhamma and this discipline. Remember what I said earlier about the Dhamma and the discipline. Satana Dharma. The classification and all the other ones that fall under this classification are Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. What is also good to remark in Jainism, Mahavira is an important figure that is also a high spiritual example, a leader. You can see Jainism statues are naked. They're naked aesthetics. So the difference is they look just like a Buddha statue, but the Buddha statue has robes on. If you see a naked aesthetic without no robes on, highly likely, 95%. Don't believe me, go ahead and do diligence and check it out. But so he wanted to leave this holy life and this Dhamma and discipline. Bhikkhus, monks, thus being informed, Alara Kamala said this to me, the Venerable One may stay here. This Dhamma, this teaching that what it leads to is such that a wise man can soon enter upon and dwell in it, realizing for himself through direct insight the Dhamma of his own teacher. Bhikkhus, monks, before long, so quickly I learned the Dharma. Bhikkhu, monks, in the sense of a mere lip reciting and rehearsal, I spoke the knowledge teaching and the elder teaching, Theravada. And I and others too claim I know and I see. So this Theravada is the southern tradition, but it's also is the way of the elders. And this teaching was not written down. It was a verbal tradition. So they did lip reciting and rehearsals. Everything taught was everything word to word, mouth, passed on. Bhikkhus, monk, I considered it not though for mere satana, faith alone, that Arakama Kamala declares that by realizing it for himself with direct insight, he enters upon and dwells in this Dhamma, in this eternal law. Bhikkhus, monks, then I went to Alara Kamlama and asked him, friend Kalama, in what way do you declare that by realizing it for yourself in direct insight, you entered upon and dwelled in this eternal law of Dharma? Bhikkhus, monks, in replying, Alara Kalama declared the spheres of nothingness. The spheres of nothingness, or the spheres of no things, which is in the later teachings of the Buddha, It was a name for the third form of the formless attainment. Now, in Buddhism, this is attained via the four meditative absorptions, the meditative jhanas, the meditative jhanas, where here it seems is to be the case. So he declared the sphere of nothingness or no thingness. I considered not only Allah Kamala has satana too, have faith, have satana, faith. Not only Allah Kamala has vigor, I too have vigor. Not only Allah Kalama was mindfulness, I too have mindfulness. Not only Allah Kamala has meditative concentration, I too have meditation concentration. Not only does he has wisdom, I too have wisdom. Faith, vigor, mindfulness, meditative concentration, and wisdom are the five spiritual faculties also taught in Buddhism. Suppose I endeavor to realize the eternal law of Dharma that Allah Kamala declares. He enters upon and dwells in by realizing it for himself with direct insight. Bhikkhus, monks, before long, quickly I entered upon the dwelled into the eternal law of Dharma by realizing it for myself with direct insight. Bhikkhu monks, then I went to Allah Kamala and asked him, friend, is it in this way that you declare that you entered upon and dwell in this eternal law of Dharma by realizing it for yourself with direct insight? Friend, that in this way I declared that I entered upon and dwelled in this eternal law of Dharma by realizing it for myself with direct insight. Friend, it is in this way that I also entered upon and dwell in this eternal law of Dharma by realizing it for myself with direct insight. Basically, a person could go ahead and tell you what they experience, but it is not valid until it is put in application. Pitsu. You have to put it in application with direct insight, awareness, with direct awareness for yourself, for it to become valid. Friend, it is the gain for us, it's an excellent gain for us that we have such companion in this holy life. So the eternal law of Dharma that I declared, I entered upon and dwell in by realizing it for myself with direct awareness is the eternal law that you entered upon and dwell in by realizing it for yourself with direct awareness. And the eternal law of Dharma that you entered upon and dwell in by realizing it for yourself with direct awareness is the eternal law of Dharma that I declared. I entered upon and dwell in it by realizing for myself with direct awareness. So you know that the eternal law of Dharma that I know, and that I know the eternal law that you know, as I am, so are you. So as I am, so are you. So as I am witness, so are you witness. As I have attained and seen for myself, so I'm aware that you have attained and seen for yourself. So as I am, so you are. As you are, so am I. Come, Karamita, friend. Let us now lead the community together. Bhikkhus, monks, thus Alara Kamala, my teacher, placed me, his pupil, on an equal footing with himself, accorded me the highest honor. However, Bhikkhus, monks, I consider this Dharma does not lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to the higher knowledge, to awakening, to liberation, nirvana, but only to rebirth in the sphere of nothingness. So this is really interesting to note. The teacher put the pupil on level ground after the pupil have realized it or reached the attainment for himself. So the hierarchy tells us that it is attainable by every sentient being. And then it leads to tell us that it awakes us to become disenchanted, dispassion, to cessation, to peace of a higher, supra mundane knowledge. It's a higher knowledge. To the awakening to liberation, or in this context, nirvana. And it goes into a rebirth of a sphere of nothingness. The sphere of nothingness could also be a state of a higher awareness that since there's nothing to be clung on or to crave, it's just there. It's just there. Space, akasha, it's just there. Something is there, but it's just there. It's amazing. Monks, bhikkhus, not being satisfied with the eternal law of Dharma, being disappointed with that Dharma, I left. This is cited in the Majjhima Nikaya, Arya Pariyesana Sutta. And I'm going to leave that off for today so we could dwell on that with insight. Peace be upon you, and allow the divinity inside to awaken in each and one of us. Sukhita hotu.